So the second part is going to be, does anyone here? I'll work on here unmuting everybody, or at least allowing you to unmute yourself. Better stated. But if you have certain functions that you use regularly, I'd love to see how anyone else, troubleshoots and debugs their code.
Yeah, we have a question in the chat where someone asks if it does it plug into any graphical GUI maker? Someone certainly has.
Sorry, I hit unmute. I think now you can unmute yourselves. Sorry. Does it plug into any graphical GUI maker? I'm not sure. Can you, unless you understand, Jackie, I'm not quite sure where it's going. Oh, am I unmuted? Oh, I need to Jackie, can you unmute yourself? Okay. Now I'm mute. All right, let me let's see. Let me turn down the stuff and I'm gonna unmute all. Oh, okay, I got it. There we go. Now you can unmute yourself. You should be able to.
Okay, I could. So what went wrong before was I think you let us all turned on all of our audio, and someone had some kind of audio loop, so we just got that.
Yeah, the pleasant sound.
So,
you're welcome.
Yeah, very pleasant sound. Yeah, and then when you muted us all, we couldn't unmute ourselves because
there was a button I have to check that says allow you to unmute. So anyway, I thought the default was that you could unmute yourself. So my bad. Anyway,
so, yeah. Where did we end up? You were talking to someone when all of this ended. We were talking about if it plugged into any graphical GUI maker. Do you know if Studio does that? I know that you can open the simple GUI maker in ZA, but it's not because it truly plugs into it.
Well, I don't see the debug, of course, is going to debug the AutoHotkey script. I don't understand. I mean, it'll still debug the GUI syntax.
Yeah,
so that's
but
what I'm not understanding of like how it would plug into the GUI. Oh, maybe okay. So if he's talking about, let's say there's a script written that's a GUI maker, which I know there are several.
Exactly.
Even then, use Notepad++, Site, or AutoHotkey Studio, and you'll be able to debug your GUI.
Yeah, that's probably about there. Yeah. Of course, it would be nice for. I'm not saying that you need to build anything, but yeah, of course, debugging actual GUI code would be nice. But I don't think there are any debuggers for that exactly.
Well, and actually, that brings up a good differentiating point of this too. Is the debugger stuff that we just looked at in Site and Studio? Those will help greatly with incorrect syntax, right? Of helping you also spot as you flow where you are and what the values and your variables and what the content are. But unless I'm reading too much into your comment, I suck at GUIs. And the whole logic of a GUI, how you can come in at so many different places and how they're written, is so, to me, very different than a normal script, that this won't help much with that kind of a thing, right? That's where having someone who knows GUIs, I go to someone else almost always when it comes up to a complex GUI.
Yeah, and of course, it's nice that AutoHotkey has the GUI code there, and some would say, as they're used to something else, that it's scrambled or weird, or does its stuff in some kind of obscure way. But of course, if you work enough with the AutoHotkey GUI code, it can be understood just fine. But yeah, it takes time to actually build useful and okay looking GUIs, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I'd say I've played with a couple other languages trying to build GUIs, and I'd say AutoHotkey, man, when I first tried them in AutoHotkey, I'm like, oh, this is hard. But when I tried them in other languages, they were much harder. So it was still AutoHotkey makes some decent GUIs pretty easily.
Yeah, I can see that Captain Odin has actually said he hates not having multiple sections when making AutoHotkey GUIs. I'm unsure what you mean by that, because multiple sections, that's maybe me. That's unsure what's meant by that, because you can have sections, but of course not really. You can have you can have tabs, and you can set
Right.
a section, and you
Yeah.
can have objects go up for the last set point of a section. But I'm sure that's not what he's meaning. That's just me guessing. You're looking through it all. That's
I
great.
was just making sure that we actually got through everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I don't know if we should make a call for that, or if you saw it beforehand, Joe, but
This
how many of the yeah,
participants.
English is, yeah, participants have actually signed up today or was signed up before? Do you have any number on that?
Um, Early on, I asked how. Oh wait, that's one of the questions in the as you join of how did you learn about it? But
And that's about our hotkey, right?
no, we had a question about how did you hear about the webinars?
Okay. Okay, I didn't see that. Was I so slow to actually come on?
No, no. This was one that when you register, because no matter what, you had to still register. I think to get here, didn't you?
Yeah, you do have to register, but if I registered last month for
Mm-hmm.
this one, I didn't need to re-register. I was just it was just me having a thought about how people actually ended up here today.
Yeah.
If they got it from the widespread email sent out and then went in and registered, or if they were already registered for today and just got notified
Right.
about it.
Or saw because I posted on Reddit,
Yeah, exactly.
and Facebook, and whatnot. Yeah. So if everyone wants to chime in real quickly about how you heard about this, that'd be awesome. Um, um, Cap Noden, he followed up with when you use X's or Y's.
No, yeah, okay, multiple sections in that way. Yeah, okay, so like sections or name sections or numbered
Oh.
sections. Yeah, that would be a great addition. That's for sure. Because if I have one section and I want to do something on another section, but then want to add more to the first sections later down in the code, it would be nice to just being able to say section 2, and then everything from there on out would make sure that all of the markers and stuff would come from section 2. Yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure that's how it's supposed to be understood, but you must correct me if I'm wrong, Captain Odin, of course. Yeah. Okay, so did we actually have Maestrith on today, or
I
did
don't
he
think so.
go? Okay. I think like he was there at one point, or what? Was that someone else at the beginning? It might have been someone else. I can't remember. Doesn't really matter. Have you talked to him lately?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So he's still doing well. That's always nice. Have you debugged anything lately?
Well, with any writing of any script, there's always, well, for me, there's always debugging because rarely do I write something and it actually work straight away. Right? There's always oh man, I got to take a quick look of like that didn't quite work exactly the way I wanted it to. And again, I'd say 90% of the time, I throw up a message box. One is to maybe understand where I am, which I guess I should have shown the and that's where in here, if you're interested, if you go this link here, which we'll send out later, but I have a couple videos demonstrating using site debugging, and in that I showed. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. The list lines as well, and here are the scripts I use. But the line number, knowing where you are and having that output can be very helpful if you have a confusing script that jumps around, and so it can help you know exactly where you are. So that's one that also I should have mentioned and I didn't.
Yeah, I must say that I remember some of the first bigger projects I worked on where just the lack of knowledge about functions and how to segment the code and stuff like that would also mean that it would jump around, and then to still kind of have some kind of reusable code, I would then dump stuff into a file that then would be included and stuff like that. And the jumping around between these things was really making it harder on myself at times.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always good to have something to help with these kind of things.
You know what? I see Joe Clicker wrote a question about debugging AutoHotkey code that spans multiple files, right? When you're using includes from a long script. Now that is one also, I'm not going to demonstrate it here just because I'm lazy, but in Sight, it does a poor job to me of when the error is in another function outside of your script, like from an include command or it's in one of your libraries, it actually does, if you pay real close attention, it will tell you it's not in the file you're working on, but it's not very obvious. You just have to really pay attention to it, and it doesn't open it up. In Studio, if I had done it and there was another function that it was pulling in, it will literally jump. If there's the debugging, it jumps over there and shows you inside that function. It automatically opens it, highlights the line where the problem is, and displays the error, which is much easier to make sure you're actually in the right spot.
Yeah, and it can be done in a lot of ways because AutoHotkey is actually pulling whatever is included from whatever file you have included into that given spot in your script. So yeah, it is jumping around on the files because that's the way you need to do it while you're debugging. But how AutoHotkey or the interpreter is actually doing it, it is actually pulling all of the text in and make it into a single stream or whatever you would call that. Yeah.
That's the other one which I didn't touch on. But if you watch the site videos, even though they're on site, they work the same as there's the step into, and that's what I was doing here with either Alt-D or clicking this. But the step out and step over, right, are both very helpful in one of them will kick you back out and return you where you had started, and the other one will continue, or let's see, step over continues on after the whole thing your subroutine you're working on. I think I can't quite remember how they work specifically, but play with those because those will help you. You don't want to go through, especially if you have a long include command and it's a function that's been defined. You don't want to keep going line by line, step into, right? If you know that there's not a problem with it. I think that's where you do the step over, and it jumps you through that process. I should have made a note on exactly what they do, but it's easy enough to find.
Yeah, it also depends on how much you use it, and they should give themselves up pretty quickly for you. But yeah, it would be great to of course having it defined right now, but still just knowing that you can actually jump around more than just one line at a time. That is actually useful. And each time we look at Studio, we always end up in kind of awe of what he has actually thought about. And he's been working on it for quite a few years, and it has been his main focus when it came to AutoHotkey for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So each time someone thinks about something that could be an interesting ad or something to have, or they have been missing in their normal editor, there's a good chance that it's actually been added to Studio just because it was a nice challenge, I think. I think that's some of the reasoning behind it.
Yeah.
It's just like the reason that I started actually answering all of the questions on the forum at one point. That was instead of figuring out what project I could write of arbitrary AutoHotkey code, instead of me trying to write something profound or something like that. I just ended up actually solving other people's small issues and had a blast doing that. But I think here with Studio, he's just extended that and built his knowledge by just keeping on with that. Yeah.
Hey, I see. So Mason mentioned that he uses standard libraries over using includes when possible, and then Joe was asking about, hey, what's the logic between that, right? I'm curious, Jackie, if you have an answer. I mean, I kind of know why I kind of would, but I don't think it's a good answer.
No, I can't really say why I'd say the one would be better than the other. Both were added before my time, and I think that it makes sense to just have or it makes it easy to just have standard libraries. And if you have a standard library and you use a function from something you have in the standard library, you will just get the function code transferred over to the script instead of the entire file. So you can get a smaller end result. But other than that, I'm not sure if there's actually any big
a strong argument.
No, not that I know right now.
For me, it has more to do with how much do I want to quote unquote clutter my library for something that I'm going to use once, right? If I have a function I've written that is very particular to a certain project I'm working on, but I'm not going to use it in other things, right? Then I'll keep it local and probably use it with an include, but of course I could put it under a local folder there with lib. But things that I use much more frequently everywhere, I put that in my under the AutoHotkey_L lib folder. And I almost never use the one under my documents. That can burn in hell for me, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I'd say that here, one of the ones in the chat actually puts up one of those that I would say would be an issue with the standard libraries. It's great that you can easily reference a function just by using it. And if it's in one of your standard libraries, it will just work. Mm-hmm. But when you actually share that script, if you have done that, you need to remember to share the standard library file that it is in as well.
And that's one in Studio. I don't remember the command. Let me see. Pack. There's one where you can tell it you want to make this script. I think there's one for clipboard. Let me see. What you can do is when you paste to clipboard, it looks at any includes and any functions ever referenced and pulls it all into the script for you, and then posts it all to the clip bin and gives you the return link, right? And I'm like, that's freaking awesome, right? I don't have to worry about where it is and whatever. It does it for me.
Yeah, and I know that others have also written standalone scripts that will help you do that. That will let you steal a function, or
That's right. You gave me one years ago. Yeah.
that will simply look at a line and see what is dependent.
Mm-hmm.
What do you actually need to make the script work around this line and make it go out and yeah, clip together everything that's needed to actually make that work. Yeah, that's great functionality if you're sharing your code. That's for sure. Again, I'm really bad at actually using all of these software tools. I will probably forget about it when I'm actually sitting there needing it. I'll know they exist when someone asks me,
Mm-hmm.
but when I need to use it myself, I'll probably have just not thought about it. And it's sometimes that's actually irritating. But yeah,
That's the other thing I'll say that Studio has oversight is built into it, because I know there are scripts that do this, but I can easily see within my script the functions that are referenced.
hmm
And yeah, I think it's just the libraries are other things that are in my library, but within the script, I know if I was doing it manually, it's easy way to see the functions that are referenced.
yeah,
Whereas Site built into it, I don't think there's a way to do that.
no, I think you're right. I
I
don't
have
think.
a script that will do that for me, but it's not built into Site.
One of the things with Site is that, let's say the shortcut bar at the top,
Yeah.
written with AutoHotkey. So that functionality is also closely related to AutoHotkey, but the rest of Site is not really, and that's also why it's so easy for you to use it with other languages and stuff. But that also means that you don't get this truly specialized functionality where you can do all kinds of stuff with the AutoHotkey functionality that you can with Studio,
Yeah.
because Studio was built around having stuff like includes and standard libraries and the easy ways of doing the different stuff. Yeah.
I'm looking at Joe Clicker. He says he has the text to voice read out the lengthy debug stuff. That's kind of interesting too, because maybe when you have the computer speaking it, you actually listen differently, right? You pay attention. I don't know that's interesting.
Yeah. And that is interesting. I need to be right back.
Joe, you should be able to unmute yourself, but I will unmute you. Oh, I think I just muted you after you unmuted. There you go. We can't hear you if you're talking. Still can't hear anything. Maybe you get your computer to talk for you. Is there? So, does anybody have any examples of some functions? I know there were several other for looking for debugging. I was looking at them, and they got to be, to me, pretty complicated, and so I've never tried them. But I like the built-in stuff into Site and Studio. I'll guess not. Does anybody else have any comments around tips on how to do a better job to force yourself to annotate and add comments? The one thing I thought about was, because I will copy and paste stuff that I've used before, but I will copy an inline. So let's say, like on this example here, where I say store values in object for blah, and then I will copy this whole line and put it into another script, but I forget to go and tweak this. right? So I think if I could get in a better habit of writing something here that says what this is doing, but at the same time, if I was to write it just to say storage values in object, right, that probably is enough to explain what this is doing, and yet when I copy and paste it, it's not incorrect because, you know, the blob was not in the other project I'm working on. Yeah, I agree, Mason, on the try catch with COM. Um, it's again, it's not quote unquote debugging, but it's helping you deal with web page stuff.
I think,
Yeah,
can you hear me now, Joe?
I can. Hey,
Excellent. So I had to switch the audio over here. Yeah, one of the things that I use the text to voice is when I'm automating a long, lengthy script that like is interacting with Excel. Basically, in the code, it just speaks a in a little short word, so I know where it is in the sequence.
oh, okay.
Because
I'll
some of
use
these
tooltips for that,
automations,
but yeah, cool.
some of these things run for, 15, 20 seconds. And to debug it, you can just hear where it's at.
Right. Were you at our last webinar?
I was at some of the one where you went over objects. Was that the last one?
No, no. The last one was. No, I'm blanking. I don't know. My question was, though, is because there was a notify, if I remember right. I
Yes.
I used notify in our last webinar, and that's when I between tooltips and notify. Now they're not the audio, but it'll splash up stuff so I can
Yeah.
understand where I am, and which is another one I thought about displaying as the script highlight. Is there's a cool one. Let me drag my start tab this back over. If I'm doing a loop, there's one that will show you the process if you're looping, and it slowly fills the color of the item in your taskbar. And that's another great one I love because I don't have to go back to the script and see where I am in the process, right? It just gives me a visual representation of how full this is as to where I am in my looping.
And that's part of the notify that you
No, that's a
demoed.
different one. That was one I had thought about featuring today, but I'm like, it just wasn't that cool. So
What
maybe
is it
next time.
called? What is it called?
I don't recall, but I let me get back to site here. If I let's see, um, that's not. Maybe that's part of this. Oh, what? I'm trying to remember. I have a hot string, but for some reason it's no. Let me pull it up here. Let's see. That is status bar. Okay. Hmm.
I didn't listen. What were you actually looking for, Joe?
There we go.
Something?
Task notify.
Task.
Task notify?
So this is this set task progress, taskbar progress.
Mm-hmm.
Let me copy that and search. Oh, I'm on Stack Overflow. I have a hotkey that will search both Stack Overflow and AutoHotkey for the specific thing that I have there. So I will paste this in the chat. It is a cool little tool that let me actually, now that we're on here, because I think I have a. Oh, you know what? No, I don't have an example of that one. That was the notify one I was thinking I have an example of. But yeah, it'll slowly, and you can change the color if you want red, yellow, or green, and it can also flash too. But yeah, it's I use it on things that are loops, and that way they can be running, and I don't have to switch to them, and I can still very quickly see where I am in that process.
Excellent. Thanks. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
I recently bought Jackie's, what is it, 7-book bundle? Is that what you had going over the holidays?
That must be Jack Dunning, I think.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fair enough. He's the one with all the books.
yeah, he writes a lot of books. There, and I've bought several. But I'd even say quite a few. They're good. Don't get me wrong. I like them. They just seem to often dabble in the same general area, right? I wish he would do a little deeper on different topics, but especially for people new to programming or new to AutoHotkey, they're a good intro.
I'd say that Jack is from what I'm seeing, he's wordy and he is really able to crank out a lot of readables, and I think it's great to have a resource like him because he's at least trying to put it all in writing. So yeah, and I think for a long time he was kind of keeping himself on the low side of his knowledge or whatever you'd say. I don't think he was trying to really dig into AutoHotkey. I think he was more into the idea of being more what's the name? More
Efficient?
Yeah, more efficient, exactly, and using AutoHotkey to be it or to show that that was a tool to do it with. But I'm not sure where it actually went this last maybe half year or so. I have read his blog a few times, and it seems as if he's actually taken on a task of trying to widen his scope on how he's using AutoHotkey. So
Cool.
so that's good.
Yeah, I in particular like some of the stuff because I bought his regular expression book, and even though I had played with them for years, working through it, it was more about also just having kind of a guide, right, to force me to learn the ins and outs of a lot of little stuff. It really did help me understand better, especially this difference between regex replace versus the match, right, and that one is a continual loop and the other one stops after it finds something and returns something, and grasping some of those concepts where it finally clicked in my head of like why I had such a problem when I tried to switch from one to the other. But yeah.
Now that you have actually read his books, how is he kind of telling your story, or is it sectionized, or how is he actually doing the tutorial type of stuff?
Well, I've only looked at one book, and I think Joe mentioned a lot of it's coming from his blogs, and it's he basically expands on specific little useful tools as opposed to having some structured program.
Okay. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just,
and again, we're not saying nothing's wrong with any of that.
yeah. I just wanted to support the guy. If I get a couple of things out of it and I
Right.
give him some coins, that's good.
Yeah, exactly. And that's also what I'm saying. I'm happy that someone is actually writing all of the stuff that he is doing, because nonetheless, the more there is in writing, the longer it will probably last. So yeah, having it there is of no, it has no bad implications, I think. And yeah.
Because Jackie and I both also we use AutoHotkey, but it isn't that we are like devoted because it is the perfect thing. When we find something else, we'll use that for other things, right? I mean, we love it. It is about being efficient and being able to solve mundane things and just make things easier and faster, and generally speaking, more accurate, and not work on the mundane, and be able to work on what's important. It's just I'd like to. His books I think are great for intro stuff, right? And anyone who's never programmed, when you first start, it's it can be, I won't say overwhelming, but tough learning curve, which is why Jackie and I thought these kind of things where we can show stuff, do a little bit of coding, but then do Q&A of like, hey, if you're working on something, you need some help. This is how you really learn great tips. I mean, actually, it was funny, that one that we were doing on Excel, Jackie was writing code, and I literally in the webinar learned something that you could do, which I didn't know. And I'm like, oh, hey, awesome.
I think a lot of people also use, let's say, IQ for something like that, because the pace on there is just that if you have an issue here now, or you are currently really working on something and something just comes up, then you can get the answer live, and I'm sure people are using it that way.
On the IRC, is that what you were saying?
Yeah, IRC, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
I've got a question about this set taskbar progress function that you linked to. There's a comment in the messages that said, the guy saying, what error? Did you copy the set taskbar progress function into your script, or save it as a set taskbar progress in the lib folder?
So
I'm confused by that.
Well, that is getting back to, I'm trying to remember if it was Mason, I think, that talked about using standard libs versus an include and stuff. With AutoHotkey, let me pull up my, here's where I have AutoHotkey installed, right? And under here is a lib folder, right? And here's where you can see I have a lot of library files that are in here. Anything that's in here, especially if I had a function that I left reference. Actually, what was the name of that?
It's
set
taskbar progress.
Yeah. So in here, I will bet you. So see this function called set taskbar progress?
Yes.
Because I put this file in this folder, where AutoHotkey's installed, lib, I do not have to use an include command.
Oh, okay.
As long as the function name is exactly the name of the file, and there's a little more. Let me finish on that, then I'll change what I just said. As long as that function name is that file, you don't have to use an include. What you can also do, which I've done like in Excel, right? I created a library called literally XL period, right? Inside of it, every one of my functions in here, see how it begins with XL underscore?
I see.
Handle. XL underscore, first row. XL underscore, screen update. This, again, I don't have to use an include command, because every one of these begins with this XL, which is the name of the file. So as long as the letter up until the underscore, correct me if I'm wrong there, Jackie, is it the first underscore? I don't know. Can you have more than one?
Yeah, I can't remember if you can have more than one. I can't.
As far as the name of your file, but you can put a bunch of them that are related, and that to me is like kind of the difference between a library versus a function, right? I'm putting stuff that are all related. They have similar uses. I'll probably use them either in conjunction with one another or on the same project, right? So everything begins with those two letters and then an underscore, and it allows me to put them all in one file. Otherwise, I'd have, because I got dozens of functions, I'd have to have dozens of files, right? This way I can have them all in one file, and I don't have to have all those in my root folder.
I think that a lot of the idea behind the standard library and stuff like that was because AutoHotkey didn't have objects, it didn't have classes and stuff like that when that was added in there. And I think that it was kind of a way to give you that same feeling or that functionality of having code that you could reuse in kind of the same way as you would a class. Because you could just as easily have an Excel class and have that load up with your script and have all of those functions in the class instead. So instead of the underscore, you just use Excel dot function name.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
Right.
Oh, I see. Well, that's very helpful. Both of those.
Yeah. It took me a while, and then there's the other thing of when you do use includes and how you call them. You can have them with the brackets versus the full path and everything. But the other thing that let me point out here is, and I'm trying to think, like in my AutoHotkey folder, I have I'm sorry, this is a custom folder called LinkedIn. Inside here, I have an LIB, a local function, okay, library. And so any script that's running here, it will look basically, Jackie can correct me here, it'll look, if I remember right, in at least 3 places. And it first looks does it first look in the local folder? Is that right, Jackie, or no?
No, I'm not sure it will look in the local folder,
Okay.
but at least it will look in the lib folder
Yeah.
at that running place or that working directory.
Right. So it'll look there. Go ahead.
And then in the standard location.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was what I did outline. Let me see if I have it in my history here, because I had the structure order too in the order it searches. My mouse is, it's disappeared. Let's see, webinar being in a few minutes. Oh, this one was classes.
Yeah.
Oh, and I borrowed. That's what it was. It wasn't a webinar. But I have one I did on functions. That I did a video, tutorial on functions, and I outlined. I remember looking it up.
Yeah.
In the order that they go. And I must have put it, and I thought I had it on here.
Could it be in the introduction tutorial under function?
Yeah, but I thought I had the actual deck, like that I could just pop it open.
Okay. Well, I'll look at that series of videos.
Yeah, they're good. Basic the things that you use 99% of the time, right?
Yes.
They help go through common uses. They don't cover every nitty-gritty thing because there's a lot of other stuff, but by far the thing is used most often.
Yeah. No, that's what I need. I need to start.
The other thing I would highly encourage is, the biggest difference for me between like using a go sub versus a function is that the function allows you to pass parameters, right? Yeah. That you can, that way it really truly minimizes, you can easily use it over and over and over just by passing a different, input value or whatever to them. And it's a game changer. It's such an easy thing to learn because honestly, they are pretty simple overall. Now there's some more complex things you can do with them, but simply putting something into a function and passing different values for your variables really is night and day of being able to reuse code.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, that's very helpful.
Oh, Cat Noden gave us the link. Let me see if I can pull it up. So it starts off in the local lib, and then it goes to the My Documents, and then it goes to, which is actually, that's a good point, is it isn't necessarily where AutoHotkey's installed, right? It's because if you have it in multiple places, it looks at what executable it is running and will look in that folder for an LIB subfolder.
Yeah, it was the My Documents one I had forgotten.
Yeah, and that's the one I said, granted, because I work on, at least until a couple weeks ago, I quit my job, so I don't work on a couple computers anymore. But I would work on, let's say now 4 different computers. And This My Documents, of course, is going to be, it's not consistent across those computers. I do have, where I've installed AutoHotkey, that's why I have this B drive. My B drive is basically my Dropbox, and then everything under it, when we look under here, let me, under progs, I have AutoHotkey, right? And so everything under this is synced across all of my computers, and because it's the B drive, which is just a fake drive, all my paths are all the same. And so that's how I keep everything synced up and consistent.
So AutoHotkey is installed in this B drive Dropbox? Right.
Yes.
Oh, I see.
And that way, my main script, right, this is my main AutoHotkey script, it's the same on every computer.
I see.
Right? And then every path and everything is all the same.
Yeah, on every computer where you have set this up, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And Dropbox has downloaded a copy onto every computer. So
that's correct.
Yeah.
And if I'm flying to Denmark to see Jackie and I forgot to bring my files, right, I can just download it from his place and you know, have access to them. Setting it up as, and actually I just published one the other day using a symbolic link, which would negate the issue. It's another way to do it. But there's a setting in Windows that you can really easily, you point to any folder you want, you can create a drive from it. And so that's how I was doing this, was I create a fake drive. It's really just a folder. And I point it to my Dropbox folder. And that way everything, and actually my desktop is under it too, just side point. So every computer I go to, I have the same desktop. I have the same, actually these change because I don't have every computer, every program on every computer, you know, the same. I don't have every program on each computer. These are all shortcuts to my folders. These are all the same on these actual what's listed here. Those are under Dropbox, and all of the links they refer to are under Dropbox. And that way, no matter what computer I go to, everything is the same, right? All my shortcuts and everything, and it's really, really helpful.
That's a good tour. So these icons down the left, some of them are just links to folders, and some of them are links to web pages. Is that what's going on there?
Almost all of them are folders,
okay,
or drives. And so I have, I think, 4 hard drives on my computer, and then these are all just different. I have hundreds of icons that I can really quickly, you know, put shortcuts to. Instead of, some people like to use something like everything, right, and search for where your files are. I am very structured on where I save my stuff. And so I have shortcuts to, well, and actually I guess I lied, because here's a recycle bin on my desktop, but the recycle bin's not well, I guess it is a folder technically. But they are all shortcuts to things that I can easily pop open, and I don't have to open Explorer and then navigate to. And if I've done it right, so yeah, that's under Dropbox. I was going to say, because normally I also set them up in a certain way, where see this where it says this system root explorer exe/e. This means when I click on the thing, it will already expand that for me as well, and so I don't have to do that.
I see. It goes right to the.
It goes right to it, but it also expands the folder. Otherwise, you'd have to hit the expand button. Yep. And of course, you see if I type root here, right? So that I have that as a hot string. So when I create folders, I can easily pop in that in front of my shortcut.
Very clever.
It is some nice stuff. That's true, Joe.
I'm super lazy. Yeah.
Yeah, you're super lazy. Yeah, you have memorized so many hot strings that you truly have the use of your enormous hot string library.
Yeah. Well, I think I told you, Jackie, years ago, I ran into, I don't know what, I ran out of RAM, right? I couldn't remember. I mean, of course, I can't remember all my hot strings anyway, but I remember a lot of them. But I ran into where I just couldn't keep track of them in my head anymore. And I had to revisit how I write my hot strings. And so I I forget why you mentioned a naming convention earlier, right? I think it was with your variable names. But I redid my hot strings to adopt a naming convention to help me be able to remember more, right? Because that's what it was. Without that, I couldn't. There's no way I could remember however many I have.
No, and of course, a lot of them are also very maybe not easy to remember, but like this one you had here with root.
Yeah.
That is maybe one of the first things you would think about actually writing instead of, let's say, sys r or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and here, let's say I was going to add an icon to this. I can go to Properties, change icon, and right here I can type p.icon, and then it pops in my path to where my icons are, right? Under my B drive, of course. And then I even have them structured a little where if it's a number, I have all my numbers in here and my alpha, and then programs. So I don't know how many icons, but it's a lot.
Yeah, and it's in your Dropbox. And
yeah.
I know as an example that you have one of the extended versions of Dropbox at least. Yeah. I've actually found it hard to find free storage space that extends above 50 gigabytes or something like that. And after that you need to pay, and there isn't much that's truly comparable to the Dropbox pricing. So that's just an extra added info. Yeah.
Is there anything else anyone wants to chat about? It could be anything, obviously. Right.
Yeah. Well, we're also closing up on the second hour or so. Yeah. If there isn't any more, we could also just let that be it for this time.
Sure. I see Mason's talking about threads and access. I don't understand what his comment about threads. You bet, Joe.
Yeah. I've read it a few times, and it's too late here for me to read.
Yeah, it's late for you. Yeah. All right. I guess let's go ahead and wrap it up, unless anyone else has last call.
Yeah, last call. That's where it does that.
Do you have do you have a certain time in Denmark that you get cut off at the pub?
No. I must say that maybe a year and a half ago was the first time I actually happened to be thrown out of a place at 1 a.m. or something like that, because they were actually closing, because I don't know why they did it, because it was actually in the center of town, and that's when people would be coming in. But maybe it was to actually save on bouncers and stuff, because
it didn't support enough people.
Yeah. Whereas maybe discos and stuff once upon a time had a morning closeout time, but now it's too it's individual timings. So yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Absolutely.
That was interesting. Yeah, thank you all.
Yeah.
That was I hope it was helpful, and I'm gonna work on myself to do better annotating and structuring my programming better.
Yeah, we can all probably get a little better at doing that. I know I can, at least.
Yeah. All right. Take care, everyone.
Yeah, bye.